Well, the countries meet their target of providing $100 billion in annual climate aid to poor countries for the first time in 2022. However, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, said that it happened 2 years later than expected. The failure to raise the money on time has eroded trust in climate negotiations. The OECD report comes as nations race to set a more ambitious goal by November. Now, why is it 2 years late? Well, in 2009, developed nations promised to raise $100 billion a year by 2020 to help lower-income countries invest in clean energy and cope with the worsening impacts of climate change. More than a decade later, this target was finally met for the first time in 2022 with $115.9 billion raised. Now, where does the climate finance come from? It can come from governments in the form of bilateral aid. It can also come from multinational development lenders like the World Bank or the private sector. Most of the $100 billion disbursed in 2022 went to climate action that limits the release of heat-trapped greenhouse gases, mainly in clean energy and transport improvements. But now experts say that a $100 billion target is nowhere near the amount developing nations will need for renewable energy and adaptation measures like the coastal defenses against rising seas. A panel convened by the UN estimates these countries, excluding China, will need $2.4 trillion a year by 2030 to meet their climate and development needs. And most surprisingly, many developing economies that are least to blame for the greenhouse gases are among the most exposed to the costly and destructive effects of worsening weather extremes. Climate finance is a thorny issue at the annual UN climate talks. Negotiations have been working this year to try and set a new goal to replace and go beyond the $100 billion target. The hosts of this year's COP29 in gas-rich Azerbaijan have made the matter a priority and hope to have an ambitious agreement inked during the summit in November. Some developing nations want their climate action to be contingent on receiving financial aid. India, for example, has proposed that developed countries provide $1 trillion in climate finance every year from 2025.